Hey guys, welcome to a bunch of random things, your one stop for all things anime, books and cinema. Today we will be discussing about a critically acclaimed film, The Smashing Machine, directed by Benny Safdie, starring The Rock, Emily Blunt, Ryan Bader and many more. So to give you guys a brief introduction, this movie is a biographical sports drama about an MMA artist named Mark Kerr, his partner Don Staples, along with his friend Mark Coleman. So the main story is about Mark Kerr, Dwayne Johnson's character, jiska we see the rise and devastating fall. He's introduced as a smashing machine, but due to his alcohol and drug abuse, we see his eventual downfall. Dwayne Johnson dials down on his star power, allowing him to give a very performance-oriented approach to this film, which helps the film a lot. He is very much believable as a gentle giant. His physical and mental decline are very much intrinsically linked. There is this condition in a fight where it's a no holds barred, because of which he has to consistently be dependent on painkillers, and that leads to his constant drug abuse, his constant medicine abuse, which leads to his inner turmoil. He starts breaking things, which even causes trouble in his relationship. Which brings me to Dawn. She's a very well written character and she's played by Emily Blunt. It had been 2-3 minutes when the movie started and I looked at a friend who was with me and I told him, is this Emily Blunt? Because she's very much unrecognizable in her role, even more so than Dwayne Johnson, I would say. And when the fights were happening, there was this very much moral clash that was happening from both the ends. We get to see the story from both the ends. Like one is Dwayne Johnson's moral collapse, and other is her being excluded out of everything. So her mental state, So they were consistently clashing. And at times, Dwayne Johnson was throwing things and being angry, breaking things. So that was a very toxic way of handling things. Like both of them were right and both of them were wrong. But the way both of them were treating the situation, that was completely wrong. And this basically unlocked a whole lot of conversation in my head. Okay, this is how we should be dealing. This is how we should not be dealing. There is this one character arc of a clay vessel that takes place in the film when he visits Japan and he buys it. It's a very expensive vessel. I think it's called, it's sort of a ball. It's a very expensive bowl. And so we see Mark buying the bowl and then we see Don breaking the ball and eventually Don fixes up the ball. It was a very philosophical arc for that small ball, which kind of stood out for me. This sort of was supposed to mean that they are getting back together, which they do, but then Rock still has a disconnect with her, so he doesn't include her in things, because of which she feels very excluded and she feels very much disrespected. So she is fighting. And after a point, Mark has it. So he breaks off with her, and there is this one scene where she has a gun to her head, and Rock runs. And he pulls her back, and then she runs off to the bathroom to have like excessive amount of pills to kill herself. And Rock stops her from doing it, obviously. And Rock stops her from doing it, and he sends her to some sort of a hospital, which was very tense, like full of tension and crazy to watch. If I count these 3 arcs in particular, like the first one being Mark, the second one being Dawn, and the third one being the porcelain vessel, they all were executed very beautifully. From the constant nitpicking to them getting back together, then them breaking things apart again, it was very beautifully executed. Although, there is this one thing that I would like to share as an experience rather than a commentary on the film itself, is that my audience, I frankly was very disappointed with them. When Mark broke off, they started clapping around. One guy started it and somehow the entire auditorium was clapping, which I found to be very insultive to Dawn, because she was actually suffering from something. She was not getting attention. Like, I understand, when she's constantly nitpicking things or she's not taking care of him properly. Maybe. And Dwayne might have a point as well, because he needs things to be particular in a sort of way where, it keeps his mental state in check. But her life is totally dependent on Mark, while Mark is not able to concentrate on her at all. So it gives a shift in her cycle, basically, which breaks the cycle, which breaks her, her daily routine. So she is going to be confused regarding the disconnect that is happening. And we constantly see her mention in the film that, he wasn't like this. So why is he behaving like this? Which kind of establishes that, she might not be the problem. Mark might be the problem after all. Although I'm not blaming either of them, because they both had their own mental traumas to deal with. And, none of them communicated well in the film. Like, not in just the film, probably because this is a real story, they might have not communicated well in real life as well, because of which the entire disconnect happened in the first place. And eventually they broke off in the film. But as the film states, they got married back in Las Vegas. So it was a very happy ending for them, which also did not eventually end, which is not really the point of the story. But I'm really disappointed in the audience. Like, why would you clap at something like that? It's something that couples go through. Why do we glorify one side of the story? When we can clearly see that Mark was very abusive in his ways. She was toxic, yes, but Mark was, he was breaking things. He was literally breaking things. He was angry in one scene and he breaks the entire door off. He was angry in the other scene, he breaks something else off. As much as the hate on Dawn is justified, I think there needs to be some sort of finger pointing done towards Mark as well, which kind of did not happen in my auditorium, but it's all right, I guess. Benny Safdie has done a tremendous job directing this film, and I really, really love the way the fight scenes were choreographed. They felt very much authentic and they felt very much real rather than being too much dramatized. And I love how we got into the core of these characters. Now, talking about the technicals, there isn't much of a score in the film. The film works more of like a documentary. It's short, like, it's hand shot. It feels like a very hand shot documentary sort of a thing, which kind of gives it a pass over some sort of bad shots, I would say, because I wasn't 100% convinced with the cinematography, but it kind of worked, I guess. It gave me the opportunity to watch the characters from a very personal point of view, which on the other hand would have been a very different thing if it were more cinematic. Because this is not your conventional boxing wrestling film. It's a very character driven film that speaks more on the character rather than on the game. It speaks more on the character's inner turmoil that happens because of him being too obsessed with his game. I've never seen The Rock cry. This was the first time I've seen The Rock cry, and it was like totally a shift in my perception of Rock. It's still unbelievable, how he let go of his star power and he completely disappeared in this role. And frankly, even after giving up his star power, I think he was very, very much powerful in the film. If I had not known The Rock, if I had not known The Rock before, I would still clap for him in this. I would still call him a star in this film. Biggest change was Emily Blunt's character as Dawn. She was completely unrecognizable in the film. Till the end, I was not able to make out that Dawn was played by Emily Blunt for some reason. She was very much disappeared in the role. She was very authentic. Even though this film is more about The Rock, because the kind of roles he does and the kind of role he's doing in this one, he needs to be pushed more, because we need to see Rock more in these kind of roles, these kind of performances. But Emily Blunt kind of stood out for me. She was completely a different beast. Along with it, there was Ryan Bader, who I first thought was Channing Tatum in prosthetics, but then I realized, and then I googled it up, and he was a completely different actor who was also very well in the role he was performing. Overall, the film was very, very well executed, and it works very much as a biographical sports drama. If you're looking for something to watch into the cinemas, this might be the film. I really want you guys to check out, because our screening, which was supposed to start, when we are called at premieres, it is supposed to start half an hour from the time of the premiere. Like, if the premiere is at 7, it's supposed to be at 7:30. But this film started at 8:30, and the audiences were a little bit frustrated. I thought I would sleep by the time the movie started, because it was already too late. It would have been half the movie done by now if they had started it on time. But the way the movie plays out, it really, really worked well for me. And I never found a single dull moment in the film. The pacing might feel a bit slow because of the documentary nature of the film, but it works well if you just give it a little bit time to expand itself. This is a film where Rock has exceeded every expectation. Emily Blunt has exceeded every expectation. So this movie is an easy 4 out of 5 for me. Most definitely recommend you to watch this on the big screen. Although by the way it's shot, it might look like a TV movie, but you do not want to miss this side of Rock on the big screen. So that was it. These are my first thoughts right from the premiere of the film. So this is not even October yet, but by the time you are seeing it, the embargo is already lifted. And if you have seen the film, let me know in the comments what you think, and make sure to follow a bunch of random things for all things anime, books and cinema.